And so this is a call-in show. Marty's going to be on for about 15 minutes, and then he'll come back and he'll take questions about Muhammad Yunus. Tonight, Marty Jenkins, locally from Santa Barbara, a friend of mine, a Toastmaster, will portray Muhammad Yunus, winner of the 2006 Nobel Peace Prize for his work in overcoming poverty through microcredit loans. Marty will be sharing in the first person as if he was Muhammad Yunus. So, portraying Dr. Muhammad Yunus, Marty Jenkins.
Thank you, Gigi and Rick. What a privilege it is to be with you and to appreciate what you're doing in making a difference in the world. My story starts in a country that is now known as Bangladesh. Bangladesh was East Pakistan when I was born and raised. And for those of you that are not familiar with Bangladesh, it's the poorest large country in the world. There are 150 million people, 40% of which live in poverty. This is the country that I was raised, and I've had the privilege of being a part of trying to make a difference. I had the privilege of receiving a scholarship from Vanderbilt University and coming on a scholarship to that university where I received my doctorate degree in economics. From there, I went on to teaching in the United States, at which time there was the political changes in my country, and East Pakistan became Bangladesh, and there was a bunch of turmoil. And in that turmoil, I decided that it was time for me to return to my native country. In doing so, I then became a part of Chittagong University in Bangladesh, heading up the economics department there. And while I was starting to teach, it was a period of time in Bangladesh that we were going through famine, and we were going through other problems. Bangladesh has been a poor country and has had very poor weather and government. And so we were going through these problems. And during this period of time that I'm now teaching these elegant economic theories that I've learned to share with my students, we looked out the window, and lo and behold, we saw dying people right outside our window. It caused us to think about, what is the value of all of these incredible economic theories if right outside our window people are dying? And so I decided that we needed to do something different. And so we went as a class, my students and myself, and we went into these villages of the poorest of the poor. And we spent time listening as you folks focus on listening and on compassion. And in doing so, we started to hear people's stories. And I met with one woman who made bamboo stools. And I talked to her about her business. And what she shared with me is that she's been making bamboo stools for years. And what she winds up making is 2 cents a day for making bamboo stools. And I asked her, why is that? And she said, well, I can't afford to buy the raw materials, so I have to borrow the money from a lender who charges an exorbitant rate. I then make the stools, and then he forces me to sell them back to him. And I wind up making just 2 cents a day. And I've been doing this for years. So I asked her, what is it that you need to change this picture? And the answer was that she needed 80 cents to buy the raw material. 80 cents, I said to myself. You need 80 cents to buy the raw materials to create a business where you can make money. Our students then went and visited with other people within the village, and we continued to survey, looking now for this common thread. And what we found was 42 villagers who needed a combined $27 to make their entrepreneurial go. $27? I decided for $27, I can do something about that. I have some money. I can loan them $27, so I did. And this was then the start of the program. And we worked with these villagers, and the villagers started their little businesses, and they were now making money, and they were now repaying. And these people, who were the poorest of the poor, were now repaying their loan of a cumulative $27. I then went to the banks and said, here there seems to be an opportunity to make a major difference in our country, and won't you loan money to these poor? The banks asked me about them, and I told them about them, and they immediately said, well, where's your collateral? Well, they don't have any collateral. How about a contract? Well, a lot of them don't even read and write, so there's no contracts. But I've loaned them $27, and they're repaying the money, and they'll continue to do that. The bank said, no way. So I continued to loan, and we replicated this in other villages within Bangladesh. And I then went back to the banks, and the banks said, okay, we're willing to work with you, but you, Muhammad Yunus, must sign for each and every loan. Well, I then signed for each and every loan. And there became thousands of these, and we replicated this in other villages, and I went back to the banks again and said, we now have these people that are repaying the money. Won't you loan to them? And the answer was still no. During this period of time, we learned a lot about economics of the poor, and we learned a lot about how to help them and to listen to them. And in doing so, then, we started developing what became the system of microcredit. And we ultimately wound up having to create our own bank with special rules from the government, and we went and we got approval to create Grameen Bank. Village Bank is termed Grameen Bank. A bank that we could then service more of the poor. We then started to understand the kinds of things that make this system work. One of the things that amazed us is how well these people paid back their loan. And we started to realize that if we formed them into groups of 5 and peer pressure, the peer pressure itself was more valuable than the collateral that people normally loan banks. So one of the basic tenets of microcredit is to form small groups of 5. Rick, in the introduction, talked about that 97% of the loans go to women. Why do you think that is? Well, one of the things that we discovered was that the women are the caretakers of the family. They're concerned about the education of the kids. They're concerned about putting food on the table, whereas the men had more of a tendency to go out and spend the money and not utilize it in a way and not pay it back. So we now were loaning 97% of the money to women. We then started to look at, when we use the term getting out of poverty, what does that really mean? You've probably all heard that there is about 1 billion people in the world that live on less than $1 a day. There's another 1.5 billion, a total of 2.5 billion that live on less than $2 a day. And so those are the terms that have often been used relative to the definition of poverty. But we weren't satisfied with that. That didn't tell us anything about really getting out of poverty. And so we developed 10 criteria for getting out of poverty. They were things like you had to be able to feed your children, you had to have a roof over your head, you had to have a latrine, you had to be able to save some money. You needed to have your children going to school. There were 10 of these criteria that indeed we could all agree that if these things were to happen, we would say that we've helped lift these people out of poverty. So we continued to work with Grameen Bank, and we continued to loan sums of money. Typically, $100 is the initial loan. And the system is that the bankers, rather than we in other countries looking to go and beg to the bank, the bankers come to the poor. They come on their bicycles and drive into their villages. They form these small groups, these peer groups that create peer pressure and assure that the money is repaid. These bankers then continue to do this on a weekly basis. On a weekly basis, they go back into the villages and they meet with these 5 people. And in doing so, then, they see how things are going. And the money is repaid on a weekly basis. So typically, there's very small amounts of money paid back each week. And within a year, all of that money has been repaid. We then looked at and explored the difference between loaning money and donating money. And you've all heard the stories of you give a woman a fish and she eats for a day. You give her a fishing pole, she eats for a lifetime. And you loan her some money, create a business, and she feeds herself and her family for a lifetime. And so we recognized that we were on to something that was a hand up rather than a handout. It was something that took the self-worth of these people and lifted them. Women who were who were not of value in the society now became of great value. So we continued to work on this, and it then started to expand into other countries. The result is that over these years, going back to the 70s, in Bangladesh, Grameen Bank has now loaned out $7 billion. Yes, $7 billion to 6 million people, 97% of which are women. 99.2% of which is being paid back. Now, in the introduction, Rick pointed out that I had the good fortune collectively with the Grameen Bank of receiving the Nobel Peace Prize. You may wonder, why would someone who's an economist that's working on poverty receive the Nobel Peace Prize? And the answer is that unless we are able to bring people out of poverty, we'll never have. You may also be interested in knowing that when we went to Oslo, Norway to receive the Nobel Peace Prize, we took our full board of directors, 12 people, 9 of which are women who borrowed money from the Grameen Bank and later became a part of the board of directors. You may also be interested to know that 95% of the funding of Grameen Bank now is from those who borrowed the money and have now invested it back in the bank. They're collecting interest. And the owners of Grameen Bank, it's 95% are the borrowers from Grameen, and 5% of the bank is still owned by the government. So I have the privilege of traveling the world. The Nobel Peace Prize was very helpful in allowing me the opportunity to do that. And in doing that, then, we look at expanding that. The program is now in over 100 countries. I had the privilege of speaking before your National Press Club. I had the wonderful opportunity to speak before while receiving the Nobel Peace Prize. And it's an honor for me to be a part of truly making a difference. When I look at what can be done, there is so much more that can be done in alleviating peace. And each of us has a vision. And my vision is that someday we're going to have in each one of our countries a museum. And in that museum, we are going to have information on what poverty used to look like. And I have a vision that the first one will be in Bangladesh, a country that was the poorest of the poor, that has now moved significantly into alleviating poverty. And my dream is right here in the United States, in Washington, D.C., that we will have on the Mall a museum for what poverty is like. It's been a privilege sharing a little bit of the story. Thank you again for having me here, and I look forward to coming back again. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Marty. Can you imagine a museum, poverty, museum of peace? And Marty's going to be right back with us in about 2 or 3 minutes to answer your questions. So our number here is 564-4153. If you have any questions for Marty or us, we hope you found this very interesting. I just found it just so amazing, to think about this. Some of the things you wrote down. We were taking notes.
Yes.
It was so amazing.
I'm thrilled to hear what a contribution this is to give people the opportunity to really value themselves and take care of their families, contribute. It's a win-win. This is international. This is huge.
Yeah, it's I'm just going back to the museum. I wish we had a museum of peace. All kinds of different museums. Just a museum of transients, museum of gangs, where all this is just gone, and we have that museum of peace, of compassion. And I never thought of that. I know there's a museum of tolerance in Los Angeles, which is an amazing museum, yet there's still a ways to go before we have total peace. And again, nonviolent communication, compassionate communication, this is the way that we find that to offer peace to other people and to ourselves. I know we're talking a lot with Marty tonight, but this is a whole thing about contribution. We value, everybody has this need for contribution to be able to value other people and to help them, and to also value ourselves. How important is that we can be able to value ourselves and take care of ourselves and nurture ourselves? What Marty's talking about is one person just asking one question of a person and getting the answer and making a huge, this is so huge, billions of dollars you know, and millions of people working with us now. I want to find out how we can get involved.
Absolutely.
You know, I'm hearing maybe not donations, but loans. That's, I don't know. I'm used to donating, but Marty says no, that doesn't even work.
Well, we'll find out more from Marty. We'll have to question him on these things.
So what do you think about this project of doing something like this?
Oh, I think it's awesome. I think it's a peace movement to really get people into that place where they love life. They have an opportunity to contribute. They're thrilled. They're excited. They're self-motivated. They have hope. I think it's awesome.
Pretty amazing. So this is Marty. How was that to do that portrayal?
Well, it was wonderful. Times I've done it before a television camera. I've done it. You may recall you were at one of my first presentations at one of the Toastmasters groups, and I've done it at Rotary clubs and churches. And there's an energy that you get from the audience that the camera doesn't quite give you. So it was an interesting experience, and I was very delighted to have the opportunity to come and be invited to share this incredible story with you.
A huge contribution to our show and to the understanding that, you know, everybody can have this idea, you know, and build their own project, come into this project. And I'm wondering, how did you decide to really get into this, to do this portrayal?
It started with my being involved with a couple of other projects in Africa. One was to bring clean water to the African people. There's an organization out of San Luis Obispo, Life Water. And another one was to bring light to those who do not have light. And through that, I heard these stories relative to microcredit, and I kept hearing the words, and I started studying about microcredit, and I became very enthused. And then I started to talk about microcredit to various groups as Marty Jenkins. And then came along Muhammad Yunus, winning the Nobel Peace Prize. And I became very mesmerized by this guy. If you get an opportunity to Google him, go in and watch some of his streaming video as he received his Nobel Peace Prize, or he spoke before the National Press Club. And he's a mesmerizing individual. And I felt so very simpatico with him. And one time, going down the road, I had this aha. And the aha was that one, I wanted to utilize this as a way to try and make a difference. And two is just maybe by portraying Muhammad Yunus, it would have far more appeal and draw than if I called you up and I said, you know, I'm Marty Jenkins, I'd like to come on your show as Marty Jenkins to talk about microcredit. It doesn't have that same sort of appeal. So I find myself very energized to go before groups and to portray Muhammad.
I'm curious how locally somebody can get involved with contributing to this project.
There isn't yet a organization to do that, and it's one of the things that I'm hopeful of doing. One of the things that will be happening is that there's going to be a major event coming up, and hopefully Fred has that and can put it on the screen, because one of the worldwide players on microcredit is going to be speaking at Victoria Hall on September the 18th at 7 o'clock. And this woman's name is Ann Hastings, and she's executive director of a group that does microcredit in Haiti. And her organization is called FONCACI, Microfinance Institution. And she's done an incredible job in Haiti. She's taken it from being no borrowers to 45,000 people are being served in Haiti. And Haiti, poorest of the countries in the Western Hemisphere. So I think it's going to be a real opportunity to come. It's a part of the CAP Center presentations. It will be free at Victoria Hall. And we're hopeful that people will be interested and come to that. There is another organization called Kiva. And if you go on the internet and you go to kiva.org, this is a very interesting site. And it's a site where you can go in and see a whole variety of small entrepreneurs around the world. You'll see their picture. You'll see their story of whether they're, chickens to do something or other, or driving push taxis or whatever. Because recognize that microcredit is totally focused on helping people create business. This isn't loans to handle other things, but it's to create businesses so that they can take care of their families, that they can hire other people. So if you go to kiva.org, you'll have an opportunity to look at it, and you can then go and loan as little as $25, and I mean loan. You get no interest back, but you loan as little as $25, or you can loan more, and then you can track how your entrepreneur is doing in that country. And I think this is a wonderful way to first get introduced into microcredit and getting that feeling of what it's like to move from donating money, which is wonderful, to lending money. Just to give you an added idea, the difference, if indeed you took and you said you're going to do $100 a year of donating money, and instead you loan that. If you loaned $100 for a year and you got it back, the second year you can then loan $200. The third year you can loan $300. And through that, at the end of 10 years, first of all, that $1,000 you would get back if you wanted, okay? Or you could give it to your heirs. And there would be 55 people who had been loaned $100 for 1 year, which often is enough to get them out of poverty. So it's an incredible leveraging of your money to try and make a difference.
So why this? I mean, out of all the things that you put your time and your efforts, why?
I think we all feel this calling relative to the poor, and for me, I had seen it on TV, and I would turn it off. I would move to the station because I thought it was something that could not ever be resolved, and so rather than deal with it, I flipped the channel. And Yunus came into my life, and by golly, this man is doing it, and I feel very simpatico with him and very drawn to try and see what I can do to be a part of.
And you wanted to bring this to Santa Barbara.
I do, yes. We're looking at doing a Muhammad Yunus support group and talking about practical ways that we can do microcredit things from Santa Barbara.
Well, what can people do to support you here?
Well, I think it'd be a really good start to go to this program, because I think we're all going to learn a lot from that program. Additionally, I delight in going and making presentations elsewhere, and hopefully Fred has my information on where I can be contacted. I just love going into schools, the Rotary clubs, and those sorts of things, and sharing this incredible story. And so I encourage people to get in contact with me. I come and I share this story for free, and it's my hope that this will generate some energy and we'll be able to do some things. One of the groups, the Rotary Club, they feature this, and Rotary has honored Yunus. They gave him their highest level award, $100,000 in '99. So I'm working also with the Rotary clubs local to try and move it from a theoretical thing to something that we can really do and take on a project, whether it's Mexico or somewhere else.
Any last words you would like to say?
No, I just appreciate the two of you and what you're doing. I appreciate the opportunity to be here and share. And I just encourage those who are interested to get involved and visit Kiva, come to this seminar, and contact me. We'll see what we can do together.
Right. And so Kiva, I'd like to flash that. It's KIVA.
KIVA.org. O-R-G.
O-R-G, okay. This is a way to get more information and also to
tip your toe into the practicality.
And contribute.
For $25, you can choose someone, and you'll find someone on there that you say, wow, that's your business, you like their picture, whatever it is that motivates you to want to make a difference. And you can do it starting $25 on you.
Just think, if I want to go into business, which I have, thousands and thousands of dollars, here's $25 just to help somebody. You really make a difference. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Gigi.
And,
Thank you, Rick. It's been a
hope to
pleasure.
hear more about this. Stick around. So we'd like to, again, invite your phone calls, 564-4153. It's 564-4153. Just an amazing contribution Marty's doing.
Totally international. How cool is that? To contribute to people and to make them happy, to give them hope. It just gives them goosebumps. He's doing this for free. I mean, he's just into it. What a gift he is.
It's a passion, well, we have that passion too. You know,
Yeah.
what a beautiful contribution the universe has given to us that we're able to share and have people like Marty on who are really passionate about other people's welfare. You know, making this contribution, it's just so huge to be able to do that. So we ask you too to find your passion. You know, it might be in your brain, your head somewhere, or your heart, and you might be afraid to go with it. Yet, I think the universe is saying, hey, this is what I want you to do. Go for it. Try to find the way. You know, and I mean, how many people, several people come up to me and say, you know, Rick, you know, our needs are not being met anymore. You know, my needs at work are not being met for companionship, for financial stability, for fun, for contribution. And they say, you know, my needs aren't being met anymore. What do I do? I go, well, what kind of strategies do you have to meet your needs? You know, your needs maybe for more money, for more fun, to be able to contribute. And I don't tell them what to do. They find it in themselves, and then they go for it.
I love that.
And it works.
It works.
It works. You know, so everybody quit your job tomorrow. No.
Well, sometimes to be able to be open for people to really listen, like with Marty, he had this vision, and he didn't just talk about it. He went forward with it. And that's just encouragement that we can all do something to contribute to our own self, and yet to go beyond. What a blessing.
Yeah. You know,